Law firms can create more engaging content simply through the act of storytelling. Stay tuned to find out how. Hi, welcome to the BD Roundtable. We're here today with Robert Cristobal, a storyteller and YouTube content creator, to get his beginner's guide on how law firms of all budget sizes can create more compelling content. In this session, we cover lots of different techniques, equipment that you need, and the various editing softwares that you might want to look into. Now, if you want to join sessions like this live, head on over to thebdroundtable.com to sign up for free. When you do, you get access to our private Slack group community, which is full of legal marketers like yourself. Now, here's Robert. So thanks for spending the time with us today. This is a really important topic for law firms, and that's video content production. You as a YouTuber kind of know how to go about the whole storytelling route, and law firms need a lot of help with storytelling. So I wanted to get you on the call today to figure out how law firms can go about doing that, what is needed, and just basically piquing people's interest to get their hands wet in the video content production side of things. So as someone who helps people with storytelling, why is it so difficult, you think, for law firms to create compelling content?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. Actually, the challenge is not really limited to law firms. Being in the industry for quite some time now, this is something that I really observe with clients. Even marketing companies, I've met marketing companies who are really finding it hard how to tell stories because storytelling is probably the most overused word in business and marketing, but where a lot of brands and entrepreneurs fail is in clarity, and clarity requires risk. Why risk? Because the nature of marketing is to win as many clients as possible. So marketers will turn to technology, tools, and trends, and it's very tempting to buy the latest tools, use the latest technology, and follow the latest trends because it makes sense. But history tells us those who are successful were able to talk to a specific set of people. So I think that's the challenge is first and foremost, if you know the set of people that you are going to talk to, you will know what to tell them. There's that bit of expectations because I think where the challenge is coming from is that most like industries, they are trying to capture, a lot of people, like mostly everyone, like let's do a campaign that would reach out to everyone and hope we nail, 30%, 40% of whatever campaign we're doing. But that's not how it works. And again, probably for law firms is it's also a challenge to become like Zig Ziglar once said, it's that you don't have to be a wandering generality, but become a meaningful specific. But of course, again, the constraints, law firms, the legal industry. When you talk about constraints, aside from the medical industry, the health industry, there's a lot of constraints. And I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that's your number one challenge.
Yeah, like the what a law firm thinks of video content is like recording a webinar of lawyers talking about the law and putting that on YouTube. That's their video content. So, but the issue is a lot of law firms know so much about their clients' business, what issues they're facing, but because they're very risk averse and they don't want to talk about the client's name, they don't want to give away too much detail, they're a bit reserved on how they could do that. So I'm trying to figure out what could we talk about? Like, how would we shoot it? Because we don't want to just shoot it in the meeting room like a lawyer interview, because no one really wants to watch that. So for what advice would you give to law firms who want to start doing this? Like, should we do it outside? Should we like, what are some venues, locations that we could use that would be useful?
Okay, going back, that's a very good question. Going back to my point a while ago, in basically every human being knows how to tell stories, regardless if you're a shy person or introvert or extrovert. We all have that experience where like we're in a small gathering with our family on a vacation, right? Or even with random people. And there's that aha moment when you tell a story, you're like in that hype, like, because you're telling it from your heart, from your mind. It's not out of a script. You don't have any constraints on what you want to say. And that's basically how you want to tell the story, even if you are a lawyer, an educator, whatnot, or business development consultant, for example. But practical sense, if you are in an F&B space, the food and beverage, do you talk about how good your food is? Because that's what everyone is talking about, right? Like, our food is good. And we have the best food, like in Singapore, for example. Or would you rather tell a story about a specific group of people who prefers a specific food than others? Because that makes it interesting, because you talk about human behaviors. And
Hmm.
when you talk about behaviors, there would be a specific group of people that would relate to that, because it talks about human behaviors, right? If you're doing corporate services, do you talk about the speed and efficiency of your system, right? It's very basic, right? Or would you rather talk about why it matters to work with corporate services who understands the decision-making process of clients? Without telling them that it's not necessarily you who they need to work with, but in general, you advise clients that this is what's important in choosing a corporate services. In the legal marketing space, do you want to talk about the top lawyers you have with your firm, and you're like 30 years in the industry? I would say a lot of that. I think this matters, but not completely. Why not tell a story of how you see relationships with clients? And that above all, how can your story, lead to how people feel, think, and decide? It will require three things from any brand who wants to tell stories. This will be inform, inspire, and persuade. And once you get to that point of, you would know that if you're telling something that's crap, it would reflect, right? Even in a small dinner table. I feel like what I'm talking about is crap. So I don't have that energy or that confidence. So it's the same with brand storytelling. You get into that point of conversation where, hey, I know what you're facing. I've met clients who have gone through that, and this is what I observed, right? And then they would start to pay attention because you make yourself somewhat like an expert, because this is what I observe, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's certainly true. And I think if we look at law firm websites, it's all about them, right? We have this many offices, this many partners went to Harvard, uh, you know, but that's not really a differentiator because every other law firm has so many offices and Harvard graduates and all the
And
extra.
what's interesting is all that, right?
Yes,
Why
yes.
is no one trying to break out of the mold and like, I want to try it differently? Like I mentioned to you a while ago, I haven't seen any like significant stuff happening in the legal marketing space, because you have a set of standards. But I'm not an expert on that because I haven't done any work for. I try to avoid, spaces with constraint unless they're really open to change. Because if clients work with me, it's about, I would really inspire them to change.
Well, I would say constraint leads to creativity, right? So if you're limited to a certain way of doing things, then you can sort of find a new way to do it.
Yep.
So interested to, do you have any industries that it would be good for us to sort of research and look into who are doing video content really well that might sort of link back to professional services or legal advisory? Is there anyone that comes to your mind who's done video content well that we can get some inspiration from?
Uh, when it comes to the corporate space, also, like when I have clients in the corporate space who wants to do a video, I mean, every reference that they send me is those basic. We are this much years in the industry, and we believe that our passion comes from whatnot. And
Yeah.
this is why you should work with us. But there's one specific, I know them because I've worked with them and I've seen, their, what they call this, their passion to deliver a message that people would want to really hear, and that's Randstad. They're an international, I think, human resource. Um, they are more focused on talking about stories. You would, of course, they have specific corporate videos, but they do a lot of stuff that talks about the branding mindset, like how they try to, what do you call this? They have like a branding. I forgot the term, employee branding principle, something like that. And instead of most corporate videos, you would hear the CEOs, everyone on top who would talk about that. For
Mm.
them, what I like about them is they talk to the people on the ground,
Mm.
because that's that's the real story. If you want to say that we're the company that has the best deployment employee experience, if you're the CEO and you're saying that, it matters to your board of directors. But if you're an employee, coming from an employee, and you would tell a story why that company has the best employee experience, then that becomes authentic. So Randstad is one company that would, you know, come out of my head, because I've done work for Microsoft and Google, really chat, depending probably on the department that you're working with, because again, these companies are, probably talking to one department, but the other department is doing a different thing.
Yeah, that raises another point. Like another purpose of most, I think most law firms will do video content because they want to get more clients. But another purpose of doing video content is to get good employees, right? To
Yes.
show what it's like working. If you have some like, I don't know, foosball table that you have every week, Friday games, or you do anything internal that's fun, get that on camera, right? Get that on video, showcase that, because that's good for, getting good candidates in to showcase what it's like to actually work in that firm.
Yep, I agree. And again, not many companies would have that risk, because storytelling also requires some sort of vulnerability. Instead of talking about success, why not? If your company have gone through a lot of failures, but you learn things from that, and you want to talk about the failure because you want other companies, even your competitors, to learn from your experience, you win a lot of people to watch your content, because they trust you, because you're not scared to talk about how you failed, right?
That's right. Um, Now, I want to ask a question. I'm not sure how to phrase it, but let's say you're sitting down with a lawyer, you're sitting down with a partner. Okay, they bought on to the idea that, okay, we want to tell a story. We have this great client who did something amazing and we help them do that.
Hmm.
Like, how would you how would you discuss that to make a good story? So let's say client X created a new invention and we help them bring it to market or whatever. So do we talk about them? How do we frame that discussion? How would you start off with the end result, or would you start off with like a script? Like, how does that discussion happen?
That's another good question. What most video production company, because this video production involves time, effort, of course, money, and you send an invoice to a client. Let's say, hey, I'm gonna produce your video, and you're gonna pay me, and just gonna do it for 15 hours, but it won't usually happen in 15 hours. And I think you know that. But uh, the process, for me, my process is, I cannot tell people how to tell their story if I don't know their story. So I would have this sort of like a creative immersion. It's something that I came up with to look, hey, that's awesome. So what I would do is, if they're talking about they're good at a specific process, I want to sit in that process. I want to be part of that process, because if I won't do that, no matter how passionate I am in inspiring them that, hey, that should not be your angle, I don't have the right to tell them that, because I don't want them to enforce their own message, because that's what they want to watch, not what people want to watch. So it would help if, if that's a specific process, I want to sit, I would go through that even if it takes a day. So I would be there. I would just like what do you call this? Sit. If it's a face to face, I will request like, hey, can I be like some sort of like an post like an assistant for you that day because they
Hmm.
don't want to show.
Yeah, shadow what's going on, see, immerse yourself.
I would come back to them like. So I'm taking that responsibility to not scold them, but to guide them into a specific way. Because if I won't do that, then I would end up telling a corporate language because it's going to be a back and forth argument. If in services industry like video production or blogging, it's going to be a back and forth. I don't have any, right to tell them that this is how you should say it because, what do I know about what you do? Even if you send me PowerPoints, of your process, unless I experience it, I won't come up with anything that's experiential because for whatever business, your goal is to bring that viewer, that client into that specific time and place. If you say, hey, I'm good in video production, I can probably, you know, show it in the videos that I do. But if I say I'm good with corporate services, those are just words, right? But how do you translate that into real life experience? You know?
Right.
So immerse yourself in the process. But that's expensive, and not a lot of marketers would do that because for me, I would take like a day
Yeah.
to do.
Well, I have another question. I'll save it to the end about some red flags when we're trying to hire some agency for this. But let's say there is no budget for an agency, and you have someone like me, a BD manager who wants to do a video, right? And the lawyers are on board. Okay, we're going to do a video about this client and whatever. Um, so they don't have any equipment. What's sort of the bare minimum that a law firm would need to shoot a decent video that could go up on YouTube?
Uh, my advice would be, I think at least I don't know the conversion, no, but in Singapore dollars,
Yeah.
uh, 1500 would get you a really nice setup because like what I'm using right now is a Sony CV1. So you would notice my camera is, clearer than the usual webcam because this is a vlogging camera per se.
Hmm.
So you can get this on the market around 800 to 900. So you have $600 to play around with, whatever you have there, that lav mic that you have. I don't know if you're using Sennheiser, but Sennheiser is expensive. You can buy
Now, this is a Rode one.
a Rode and a Boya. You can buy it, and of course, light. The thing about light is, if you have a nice window on your office, you can save $100. But if you really want to invest in that, you can buy it, and of course, a teleprompter. That teleprompter I'm using, I got this from Amazon for $60. I think 50 plus dollars, and it's a smartphone teleprompter. So you would just download the app, and this is actually what the remote looks like. Like
So you recommend a DSLR camera or some sort of
so,
decent camera?
ZV1. It's not it's like the most advanced point and shoot out there in the market. Really designed for those who wants to use like a good enough camera. Because the problem with iPhones, iPhones, especially if you're a law firm, you would probably tend to have how many calls in an hour if you're going to film an hour, unless you want to invest in an iPhone, which is a $1,600 phone. Right? Why not buy the things that you need, and you would have a setup.
So with the camera, how about the lens? Do we need any sort of f-stop to get that sort of bokeh look or that professional look, or is the kit lens good enough?
Okay, if you're gonna buy the DSLR, uh, it varies. Okay? So again, you would look at the purpose because you would have to ask yourself: is my priority to uh, deliver videos or to look fancy? You
Mm.
know, because if you really want to look fancy, I can quickly give you, a device that would require you like a $15,000. That's really, fancy.
Yeah.
But for me, for those who are starting, I would really not recommend a DSLR. You know why? Because videos for DSLR, although they have the auto mode, unless you really are in that industry, there's a lot of the learning curve compared to a GoPro, for example. It's like point, shoot, and then you have a 4K video, and like what I'm using right now, Sony ZV-1. So I would only suggest you go for a DSLR if you have an in-house person who would really, because some DSLRs would only film 8 minutes maximum.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, and
And because of the motors on that camera, it prevents itself to overheat, and that's why I wouldn't recommend that.
what is that you recommend? A Sony what?
Sony ZV-1.
All right. And then you mentioned microphone. I think audio is probably maybe more important than video, maybe, right?
Yes.
So you need to have a decent audio. So can you just sort of plug that into the camera and then just use that, or would you need to record it separately and then cut it together, synchronize it afterwards? Or it doesn't really matter
But
up to your workflow?
because usually when you do recorded videos like this, right, or if you're gonna do a Zoom call, or presentations that would involve your computer, you need to plug it to your computer as an audio device. Because if you're gonna use an external camera, uh, you, the camera would only convert the video data through the cable. So the audio would be separate. So you would need for the $1,500, it would include an audio interface, something like Scarlett Solo, which is less than $100, I think. So whatever you're using, you plug it there, and then it would be detected by your computer. But if you're gonna go out, because you can't bring that device with you, you need to invest in an extra, like a mini shotgun mic, like they have that. No.
All right, so camera, audio, and then you mentioned lights. So natural light is good, but it's not always stable. And if you're going to shoot over a long time, you need it consistent, right? Any recommendations on lights? Like I know that the light boxes that you can get, but they're quite big. How about some of those LED lights, but they might be a bit too harsh? Like, what's your
Yeah, you would probably look for a light that has a dimmer behind, because some lights, the cheap lights, the LED lights, is just an on and off.
yeah?
It, what, however bright it, it is, you're limited to that. So there are lights that have like a dimmer or a dial behind them that would allow you. And again, it depends if it's like something like this, a sit down setup. The very standard LED lights. I don't For lights, I don't really invest that much money, because you can spend like up to 2,000 grand on a branded light, which just give lights. So you have to also be careful about that, because light in general, they are light. So if you buy an $80 light, like on Amazon or on eBay, which you can use for, let's say, a year, it's good, I think. Or
Right.
they invest in the $2,500 branded lights.
Well, these are law firms at the end of the day, so some of them do have money that they can spend. Okay, and just to wrap it up, how about on the background, the environment, the set? Any tips, major things that we shouldn't be doing? Or what would you recommend? I mean, obviously this goes across lots of different types of video types, but what are some of the basics that we should be keeping in mind?
Okay, probably for most legal firms, they would have a spare room.
Mike?
For something that you plan to do on a regular basis, you would want to get uh, something that you have, which, a white wall. I mean, I have like a rock star background because that's my brand. I have my guitars there, and I have my Iron Man toy because that's me. For something like what you have right now, it's like an empty wall. That's good. And then if you, what I would suggest, I don't know how far your chair is from the wall. If you can move further, where you can easily slide an IKEA bookshelf, so your next episode would have books. Your
Mm.
next episode would have a lampshade. Your next episode would have that frames hang on that. But it's basically a spare room that you can be creative no matter what you want to do. But in terms of the background, I think um, it's a conversation about branding, how you want to look in front of the video to your audience when you talk. So
Yeah,
I
'cause it is important, right? I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, well, they'll think about that at the end, like, oh, let's throw a plant in there or something." But this is a whole thing, right? There are, if you think about like a TV show, they spend lots of time thinking about what goes in every frame. So there needs to be a bit of thought about how can we throw in a branding and not just throw a logo or something like a banner or
yeah,
whatever.
green screen. I would not recommend a green screen because the green screen would depend on how bright your light is. So have you seen like a video where like part of the face is being cut off? Like I'm becoming half ghost, half human because I'm using a green screen. So a more natural, real background would be nice. I mean, if you have a bigger space, that would give you more, what do you call this, separation from you and your background.
Yeah, but like a lot of the constraints. So I'm in a meeting room and the table is fixed, right? So I can't get far from the wall, which I know I should be,
Yeah,
right? And because you get that sort of depth and all of that. But yeah, constraints leads to creativity. So let's see what I can do next time. Maybe I can angle and show something. I don't know. We'll see.
yeah.
Um, okay, I just want to wrap it up quickly with some discussion about software. So, okay, we shot the video, we have the audio. There are, from my knowledge, there are like three main things that we could use. You could use Premiere Pro and the Adobe Suite, right? Which is pretty easy with a subscription. There is a free version, Resolve, DaVinci Resolve, which is pretty decent from my understanding. And then there's the Final Cut with the Apple
Yeah.
stuff. Um, anything else that we could be looking into?
For me, I've tried at least six softwares in 15 years. But when I finally, second to the last software that I was using was Final Cut Pro. But when Adobe Premiere did a lot of those updates like years ago, I jumped and never looked back. But
Mm,
then it's an investment that you would have to make. So for DaVinci, I didn't try DaVinci because I read some review, the coloring for the Resolve, because DaVinci is really a color grading application. So the color grading would be a bit of a learning curve for me. For someone, if I'm talking to someone who haven't done any editing in their life before and don't want to invest, okay, hey, I don't want to pay for Premiere Pro because I'm just gonna do one video a month. So yeah, that's a good reason.
mm.
If you're a Windows user, the Movie Maker is decent enough. If you're a Mac user, the iMovie is decent enough because you have other alternatives like Filmora. Filmora is very popular right now, like in a low grade uh, market because it's easy to use. It's combining all the tools and the capabilities of the expensive software, and you can buy Filmora with the lifetime license, which is nice. And they're offering that because everything now is every software now you have to pay monthly. Like it's fine, but uh, if you don't have a laptop, let's say, we don't know, right? Or like a person like you, One morning, your boss wakes up like, "Hey, Will, we need videos, and I don't have money to spend. We need videos." So there are ed- really fancy editors on an iPhone. I haven't tried on an Android device, but like InShot is a really good iPhone smartphone video editing because your concern when you're starting is just cut here, put it to the next cut, transition, and I want to add a text, right? I want
Mm.
to add an intro and an outro. So something like that will really help you.
Yeah, so there, I think luckily, we're in the age where there's so many options. You can test them out, try them out, lots of things that you can test it. Um, any tips on for beginner editors? So I know we can watch all the YouTube tutorials and get really in depth, and you see a very interesting video about like transitions and making really fancy transitions, and then the beginner editor will go in and like do all the transitions that are available, right? Uh, and we know that's not what you should be doing. Let's keep it simple. Any other sort of tips for the beginner editor to keep the videos?
For the beginner editor, it's about clarity and context. Again, all the fancy stuff that comes with editing, that comes with the tools, the gears, that should be secondary. But if there's anything that's practical that I wanna say to video editors is get it done right on filming. So editing should be some sort of your video editing should not be fixing the errors of your filming. Your video editing should be, like beautifying what you have filmed. So you add because you cannot add a text floating when you're shooting, right? So you do that, you learn that on video editing. But you know, fix the filming. You know, get to the point where the filming is really good enough to be edited that you're not required to correct any errors. And for that, another practical for the new editor is because you're new, don't be too hard on yourself. Just my advice for in general for those doing the video is you press record and do your first video because once you've done that first video, the question of whether you can do a video or not is already fixed. 'Cause, hey, I have my first video and I don't care if it's good or not, but I have my first video. Then you go to the second video. On the second video, you watch your first video and you try to get better.
Hmm.
At least 1%, 1 to 5% better than your first video. Once you have the two videos, there's probably going to be a third video. So it's about getting better and better and better. But a practical approach would be just do it because you wouldn't know what will go wrong. You can take all the advice from YouTube. Hey, I have all the awesome advice on my brain, but I'm afraid to press record.
Yeah.
When although I press record, I'm afraid to edit because I'm a beginner. People would probably hate my videos. My boss won't like. But everyone, like myself, the first video that I made like 20 years ago, it's a joke that I would always play on like on a family gathering with friends. I keep it. I would play it like, dude, did you do that? Of course, that's my first video. So what do you expect, right?
Right.
So that's my like in
So
general, yeah.
just do it right and get better.
Yeah.
And it just understand that it doesn't need to be perfect, right?
The,
It can always be good.
the first video is your lifetime achievement. That's what I would say. Because unless you have that first video out, there's no point of reference. What you should do on video number two.
All right. Now, for those who are watching, if they want a little bit of extra help, they can come to people like you and Frame 316. Can you tell us a little bit why would someone want to come to you and Frame 316? What can you do for them?
Uh, I'm a little bit different in that context. I don't necessarily tell some to like companies or people to why they would want to work with me, but I would tell people why they would want someone like me, an expert uh, to work on their storytelling, because again, I'm a storytelling company, and video is the main component of that. Is because you would want creatives who are willing to say no to what you want. Because although you're gonna pay a lot of money, uh, you would need someone who would bring you into a conversation that, okay, this is what you want, but this is probably, what your audience would want, and you have to look for data to support that claim. And for companies like myself, uh, we go through that process of really helping them tell better stories. But again, as I've mentioned, for myself, I wouldn't be able to tell your story. I'm not part of it.
Mm,
So, that's one advice. If it's not me, you find someone who's willing to do that, to be part of that story. Because otherwise, you're going to be dictating that agency or that person, or he will be dictating you what to do. And there's not any real conversation that's going to happen if that's the case. So
right.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for all of you watching again. You can head on over to YouTube and check out Frame 316 Media, right? You have a healthy following there.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
Yes, yes. Almost 1,500 subscribers, so you're doing something right. You also have the website. People can check you out there, and I'll link to all that in the description.
Sure. And
All right.
I started from zero subscribers. So like it's on the third or fourth video that I started to get really uh, significant views. So
Yeah.
if you do videos, uh, keep doing it as if a million people is already watching your videos. That's if I have one last instruction, if I may, keep doing it as if there's a million people watching your videos.
Well, they say you should dress like for the job that you want to have. So you should create videos for the subscribers that you want to have as
Yep.
well. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Robert. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having me, Will.